Welcome to This Explainer. Have you ever just looked around and felt completely overwhelmed by the sheer, crazy variety of life on Earth? From the plants on your windowsill to the microscopic organisms you can't even see, the natural world is chaotic, vibrant, and incredibly diverse. But scientists, well, they don't do well with chaos. So today, we're going to explore exactly how scientists organize all of this beautiful diversity into a highly logical, universal system. To make sense of it all, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the diversity of life. Second, biological naming rules. Third, taxonomy and systematics. And finally, the taxonomic hierarchy. Let's get right into it. Section 1, the diversity of life. We're going to start by understanding the true scale of the living world. When we think about the extraordinary habitats around us, freezing cold mountains, lush deciduous forests, or boiling hot springs, it's honestly speechless-inducing. Think about the beauty of a galloping horse, the raw power of a shark on the attack, or even the invisible, literally nonstop molecular traffic happening inside your own cells right now. It forces scientists to ask a really fundamental technical question. What indeed is life? What actually defines the living as opposed to the non-living? While philosophers might sit and ask what the purpose of life is, biologists are intensely focused on defining and categorizing what is actually living right in front of us. To truly put the scale of this categorization problem into perspective, consider this mind-boggling number, 1.7 to 1.8 million. That is the number of currently known and described species on Earth. That's our biodiversity. And get this, as we explore new areas or even re-explore old ones, new organisms are continuously being identified. Imagine if we just use local names for all millions of them. It would be absolute chaos. A single bird or plant could have dozens of different names in one country alone. Making sense of this staggering diversity took some absolute pioneers, and perhaps none were quite as influential as Ernst Mayr. He was literally called the Darwin of the 20th century. Over an 80-year career, 80 years, spanning ornithology, taxonomy, and evolution, he almost single-handedly made the origin of species diversity the core question of evolutionary biology. But more importantly for us today, he pioneered the currently accepted definition of a biological species. He essentially gave us the concrete starting point we needed for organizing life. Moving on to Section 2, biological naming rules. This is all about creating a universal language. So a scientist named Carolus Linnaeus actually solved this whole global naming confusion with a system called binomial nomenclature. Sounds fancy, but it just means a two-word format. Instead of calling something a mango, which, let's face it, only helps if you happen to speak English, biologists use a globally recognized name, Mangifera indica. The first component, Mangifera, is the generic name. The second component, indica, is the specific epithet. This exact two-word system is practiced by biologists literally everywhere, ensuring that no matter what language you speak, you know exactly what organism is being discussed. And to make sure every organism has only one internationally recognized name, biologists follow 4 strict universal rules. First, biological names are Latinized. This gives them a neutral, historical origin. Nobody's playing favorites. Second, as we just talked about, it's always genus first, specific epithet second. Third is about formatting. If you write it by hand, you have to underline both words separately, but if you type it, it must be in italics to indicate its Latin origin. Finally, capitalization is strict. The genus always gets a capital letter, and the specific epithet is always lowercase. Oh, and sometimes you'll even see a little abbreviation at the very end for the author who discovered it, like Lin for Linnaeus. All right, Section 3, Taxonomy and Systematics, the science of organization. Now that we know how to universally name these organisms without the chaos, how do we systematically group them together? Well, it all starts with classification. Because it is nearly impossible to study millions of organisms one by one, we have to group them into convenient categories, which scientists call taxa. And this is based on easily observable characters. For example, if I say the word dogs, you instantly picture a specific group of animals. You don't picture cats, right? If I say mammals, you think of animals with external ears and body hair. If I say wheat, you picture a field of grain, not rice. Dogs, mammals, and wheat are all taxa. They're just convenient mental buckets at different levels that make studying life manageable. So the big takeaway here is that taxonomy is the formal, foundational science of this entire process. It takes that basic, everyday idea of classification and applies rigorous scientific methodology to it. Modern taxonomy doesn't just look at whether an animal has fur. It looks at external and internal structures, cell structure, developmental processes, and even ecological information. Characterization, identification, classification, and nomenclature. Those are the four foundational pillars that make up the science of taxonomy. But we can take it a step further than just grouping by physical traits. Enter systematics. This term actually comes from the Latin word systema, meaning systematic arrangement. Early humans basically classified things by their uses. Is this food, clothing, or shelter? But systematics maps out the actual evolutionary relationships between organisms. It asks not just how are these organisms similar, but how are they related through the vast, deep history of life on Earth. Which brings us to our final section, Section 4, the taxonomic hierarchy. It's time to climb the ladder of life. You see, classification isn't just one quick step. It involves a whole hierarchy, where every rank is a distinct biological entity. Think of it like zooming out on a digital map. We start zoomed all the way in, at the lowest, most specific category, the species. A species consists of individuals with fundamental similarities, like the tiger, Panthera tigris. Then we zoom out to the genus, grouping closely related species together. So the tiger is grouped with a lion and leopard into the genus Panthera. Zoom out again to family, and Panthera joins the other cats in the family Felidae. We keep zooming out through order, class, and all the way up to phylum for animals or division for plants. And keep in mind, as we climb higher up this ladder, the number of shared characteristics actually drops, making the relationships much more complex to define. And finally, at the very top of our taxonomic climb, we hit the kingdom. This is the absolute highest, most inclusive biological rank in this entire system. All animals, no matter what phylum they belong to, whether they're a tiny insect or a massive mammal, are ultimately assigned to kingdom Animalia. And all plants are assigned to kingdom Plantae. It is the ultimate overarching category of the living world. Now, what's really cool is seeing this whole system in action. Think about how a human, a housefly, a mango, and wheat can all be perfectly and logically mapped out across these exact same ranks. Take us. Man, our biological name is Homo sapiens. Our genus is Homo. Our family is Hominidae. Our order is Primata. Our class is Mammalia. And our phylum is Chordata. From a complex human to a simple little housefly, the taxonomic hierarchy provides a seriously elegant, universal framework for every single known piece of life on this planet. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to think back to that number we talked about earlier, 1.7 to 1.8 million known species. Scientists have built an incredible, internationally recognized system of taxonomy and nomenclature to organize them. But the crazy reality? A massive number of organisms still remain completely unknown. They're hiding out there in deep oceans, dense rainforests, and microscopic realms. So keep observing the living world around you, because the work of taxonomy is absolutely far from finished. What else is out there, just waiting to be discovered, identified, and finally given its rightful place in the hierarchy of life?